Wonderful. So thank you again, everybody, for being here today. We're excited to share some very interesting information around maximizing the medical assistant learning suite from NHA. Before we get started talking a little bit about what we're going to cover here, I'm going to post a poll. You should see a poll opening on your screen. We're a little bit curious about who's with us today. So you take a look, and there are several different options. Try to identify the one that most closely aligns with you and your position at your institution. If you don't see anything that works, pick other and post that in the chat. We'd just love to see a little bit about who's joining us here today. So thanks so much. Just take a quick minute. We got almost everybody. Thank you so much. I'm going to close that down here in just a second. Anybody else want to join in? Last chance. All right, wonderful. Well, it looks like the majority of folks who are with us today are either program directors or coordinators or classroom educators, which is great. This information is really geared towards what you probably have questions about. So I'm excited that you're all here today. If you're here as an alternative member, that's totally fine. It's still really, really important information. So thank you again, everybody, for being here. Let's go ahead and dive in a little bit. So our goals for today's webinar are to really provide an overview of the NHA Medical Assistant Resources Suite and help you hopefully make the most of your implementation. We have some expert presenters who are going to guide you through some practical examples and actionable strategies to take your medical assistant use to the next level. So I am going to ask another question here. We're going to do another poll. Let's see if I can find that. There it is. So as we kind of get started, how familiar are you with this suite of material, right? So take a look. I've got a couple of different options here. Scrolling down if you need to, but we're just curious. Are you very familiar? Is this brand new to you? Are you looking for some tips and tricks from maybe your last term? Everything is fine. If there's something else you want to add, again, post that in the chat for us. Let us see kind of how you're doing. Got about half of you here, and the information is really all over the board. We've got people who are very familiar. We've got people who aren't familiar at all. So this is great. We're going to cover a lot of great information today, and I'm excited for everybody. I'm going to close that down a little bit. So we do, as you can see, we've got people from almost every single level on the spectrum, which is fantastic. We're excited to be sharing hopefully some great information with you as we go through today. So again, I'm your host. I guess I should probably introduce myself. I'll go say hi. Hi, everybody. My name is Laura Roos. I am NHA's enablement specialist, and my focus is on being an advocate for you, our clients, ensuring that you have everything that you need to be successful. I'm going to be covering some high-level review of NHA and outlining the products that are included in the medical assistant suite. So for those of you who are not as familiar, this will be really informative for you. Today, your primary presenter, and let me just pull that up, is going to be Kelly Cobb. Kelly is an industry expert who's worked in almost every role that includes education and healthcare. And she's going to be reviewing with you the most important topic today: how to use these tools together for maximum impact. So let's just get started with some high-level overview. NHA is the largest certification and educational organization in the industry. We are approaching 1.5 million certification holders. So through these robust learning resources we've created, as well as our 8 nationally accredited certifications, we are reaching towards our mission of really helping people to access a better future. And we know this takes you as well. Your involvement in your learners' progress is essential. We work with employers and educators across the country to help continue to grow our resources to make this future possible for them. We know that ultimately the goal is to provide patients with higher standards of care, and this happens through dedication and hard work. So let's start by taking a quick refresher look at NHA's learning resources that are included in the full medical assistant suite of products. Before we do, I am going to ask you one more question. Let's see if I can find that. Here we go. Thinking about the general overview of what I've expressed we're going to cover, What are you most interested in, right? This is a live webinar. We can always shift gears just a little bit, but what are you most interested in focusing on today? Great. We've got a lot of great stuff coming in. More information, ideas for pacing, please let us know. Post those in the chat. We'd love to see that. Excellent. All right, we got about 3/4 of you have answered here. All of the above. Thank you. I love that. Wonderful. Okay, well, it looks like the pacing has slowed down a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and close that poll. So again, it looks like we have a wide spectrum, which is really exciting just because we are hopefully going to be covering a lot of these things for you. So stick with us again through to the end, and we can get to some open Q&A then as well. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. So the learning resources are strategically designed with the goal to address multiple learning styles, environments, and even implementation methods. These online tools are created to be what we call right-sized, as well as flexible based off of your institution. You can activate all or just some of the modules as needed, when needed. They can be used at any stage in the learning cycle, from foundational learning all the way through to professional ongoing development. So for the NHA Medical Assistant Suite, we're able to take learners through that full journey from foundational learning through to skills development and exam readiness. So let's just take a moment and look at what each of these products does individually. So we're going to do this pretty high level so we can get to the real meat of today's session, how to use all of these products together. So stick with me. As we go through these, if you would like to learn more about any of these, let us know in that survey that we're going to post at the end, and we'll be able to get you directly connected to your NHA representative. So the Medical Assistant Suite starts with the language of healthcare with medical terminology. It is streamlined to just the core elements that an entry-level allied healthcare worker would require. Unlike traditional textbooks, this online learning resource provides an engaging and interactive experience for learners, hopefully helping to solidify these essential topics. This then ties directly into NHA's anatomy and physiology. Again, this is another all-in-one resource that provides the essential understanding of how the body works, using 25 learning modules, activities, quizzes, and videos to help the learner make connections between the body's functions and processes. Also included in this learning suite is NHA's first assessment-based certificate program. It's a skills-based resource called Personability, an innovative professionalism and soft skills developer that focuses on communication, teamwork, and emotional intelligence. Through learning modules and real-world simulations, active online simulations, learners discover methodologies to handle difficult situations and put them into practice through a safe online environment. From de-escalating a patient through to receiving feedback from a superior, this tool quantitatively and qualitatively provides the ability to train on this essential set of skills. Another tool within this is NHA's Principles of Health Coaching. The first step to learning how to educate patients on their own through the health journey, this tool picks up where Personability left off, leaning a little bit further into communication, specifically handling difficult discussions with patients using motivational interviewing with an emphasis on population health management. Learners earn another assessment-based certificate through the successful completion of this learning resource. Now, we all know that medical assistants have to work on their clinical skills, but more and more employers are seeing a skills and knowledge gap in their administrative skills as well. This is where the MA Skills Builder Administrative Plus comes in. Though applicable for both a medical administrative assistant as well as clinical medical assistant, this tool takes learners through both foundational elements of these core skills and the how-to of implementation, using real-life EHR scenarios, activities, case studies, and a patient experience coach. This has both foundational and skills-focused modules, helping the learners to master the top 25 skills identified by employers as essential. Now, the flip side of that coin is ensuring that medical assistants have the critical clinical skills and knowledge necessary to perform their main duties in patient care. MA Skills Builder Clinical Plus meets that need through foundational modules and skills development, just like the Administrative Plus. And learners are shown through their patient experience coach the why behind all of these skills and how to ensure a positive experience for the patient. One of the unique features of this tool is the immersive simulation quiz that's tied to the hands-on skills modules. These take the learner through real-world scenarios to showcase their mastery of these skill sets. Of course, the essential goal is to get learners certified at the completion of their journey. So the NHA exam preparation materials are designed to help bridge that gap from this foundational learning to exam readiness with an online study guide, activities, flashcards, quizzes, videos, and to help further their readiness, they receive a series of practice tests to help give them that exam day experience, as well as unique per-learner remediation in between each attempt. Learners who use this material and follow best practices when studying statistically have a significantly higher potential to earn their certification in their first attempt. Now, through all of these resources, uniting them is our streamlined platform and a seamless user experience, which includes analytics and reporting, providing insight to all stages of the learner's journey. You have the option to dive as deep into reporting as you want, seeing anywhere from time in study to frequency of use to success in any assessment. NHA's proprietary exam prep analytics engine, Vitals, monitors learners in their exam materials and compares them to other learners who have the same material and pass the exam in their first attempt. So you can see if their learner behavior is aligned to those who were successful and can help encourage those best practices for peak performer candidate outcomes. The NHA exam itself, of course, which is nationally accredited and recognized by all MA program accrediting bodies, assesses candidates based on the core competencies identified across the country. Completion of the exam also provides both you and your learner continued reporting and insights, with most cases same-day results and data. NHA partners with some of the largest employers in the industry and is recognized by many as their preferred credential for medical assistant. We know this is the key essential step for your learners to move into that next phase of their journey, but that's also where NHA's other credentials can come in. We know that more and more employers are requiring stack certifications. We also know that those candidates who obtain multiple credentials are not only more likely to get a job, but the job they want. They're also statistically more likely to have a higher pay scale, as well as move on to further education. Providing additional certifications as milestones in a program also helps learners with the motivation to continue through to completion. So I'm going to ask, I know that was a lot of information, and we had a lot of people that were somewhat familiar or a little bit familiar. So all of those resources I just listed here are now in this poll. And I'm curious, what do you use? And you can select all that apply. What are you familiar with? What aren't you familiar with? Go ahead and just let us know. Perfect. Thank you. I know there's a long list there, so I appreciate that. But based on what we just covered, really super high level, we could do a whole webinar just on those things. Just a little bit curious about how everybody's feeling. Got about half of you here. Great. Love it. Leading the pack is the MA prep and exam. This makes perfect sense, but we've got a lot of people who are very familiar with some of our other resources as well. This is great. I'm going to close this poll down. Anybody else want to ante in? Feel free now. Fantastic. Thank you so much. So again, as you can see, the exam prep is the clear winner with medical terminology, personability, our skills builders coming up. But this is wonderful. I appreciate you guys all for answering that. Okay, so that was quite the review. some of those resources may be new to some of you. And if you have any questions on them, again, let us know in that survey at the end. We'll have your NHA representative reach out to you. And along with all of these tools, let's talk about what is in it for you, right? These come with additional tools to help you implement, which is the focus of our discussion today. So at a super high level, this starts with a facilitator toolkit. These sources of information provide you supplemental tools that an NHA's team of experts have created to help as you implement your program. Each toolkit is unique and focused on helpful tips for that particular product. They don't all include the same items, but they can include things like PowerPoints, answer keys, FAQs, lesson plans, just to name a couple of items. And all of that information is super lovely and helpful, but once you dedicate to the MA program, now what? And this is where today's information comes into play. NHA has done most of the heavy lifting for you already, and this can include sample pacing guides, integration outlines, and best practices for when to use what product or even module. And this is where I'm going to turn things over to our industry expert, Kelly Cobb. Kelly, are you able to join us today?
I am. I'm so happy to be here with you today. Hi, everyone. It's great to join you and to discuss the National Health Career Association's full suite of support and resources to help you, your colleagues, and your learners throughout your program's journey. So I am going to start with that program planning and look at what are some of the steps you're going to consider as you're planning your program. The first step is it involves starting with your end goal in mind, your program outcomes. What ultimately do you want, which is to develop certified, practice-ready clinical and/or administrative medical assistants. To do that, you can begin by exploring our test plan, which was developed through industry experts in determining what topics are most important for medical assistants to know. These topics are categorized as domains, which we will further explore in future slides. Each domain is then considered through a job task analysis to determine what knowledge and tasks are important for beginning competent medical assistants to know. This subsequently empowers you with the confidence in knowing you will be covering the most essential content that's needed. Our next step are our learner outcomes. Now that we know our program outcomes, what do we want our learners to come away with? And that begins with determining what your learners need to know after engaging in learning activities. An example of that would be accurately performing tasks or skills such as obtaining electronic or manual blood pressure, or even something such as communicating with a client while encouraging medication adherence. You can find this information in our module's objectives. Those are located in your lesson plans and for your learners at the beginning of each online module and PowerPoint presentation. Your next step then, your third step, is going to be after determining what you want your outcomes to be, what tools are you going to use to get you and your learners there? That's where you will consider things like skills videos with corresponding checklist, PowerPoints, immersive simulations, online learning modules, flashcards, etc. From there, we go into formative assessments. So we're checking to see, are we meeting those goals? And these assessments are formative in that we can check and see if they're meeting those goals and give feedback and opportunity to grow. Examples of that are going to be your quizzes with rationales, simulations with feedbacks, etc. From there, we then go into our summative assessment. Summative assessment is they've received all the instruction that they need, and now we're going to check for competency. And this is our high stakes exams. Examples of this might be a certification exam, or if you pass this, are you ultimately going to be certified? It could also be instructor made exams and that type of thing. And then our final step, now that we've considered all of these issues, is our instructional plan. how do we then lay our courses out? How are we going to pace out this learning and assessment? And that's going to be some examples of that might be, are we going to do this all in class, in person? Are we going to do it hybrid? Are we going to do it all online, etc.? So now we'll go to our next section, and I'd like to ask for you in the audience, what are your main challenges when preparing your curriculum? And you can select all that apply. Would it be identifying what is essential to know? Once you know what is essential, aligning your curriculum to certification standards and connecting classroom content to clinical practice.
We got some great results coming in, Kelly. It looks like there is an obvious fight here between all three of them being the most important. I'm sure you're not surprised by that.
I am not.
But we've got just a little bit over half of the group, and it's pretty clear.
Great. And you guys feel free to put in chat too if you have additional challenges.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So responsive slowed down just a little bit. I'm going to close that down. Here we go. Okay. So as you can see, it is neck and neck here.
Oh, it really is.
With all of them. So amazing. Great job.
Okay. So to help you with that, we're going to look at how do you do this alignment? So as we had talked about those test domains, what are the most important content that we need to cover? So this is an example of a domain within our CCMA certification. This is foundational knowledge and basic science. This includes what you might think of with foundational knowledge, which would be healthcare settings, role of the MA, even medical law and ethics. Then we have our next domain, which would be medical terminology, A&P, customer service and communication, clinical patient care, and patient care coordination and administrative assisting. So now, how do we align our instructional materials then with our test domain? What is important to teach? And the first example would be your MA Skills Builder. I saw in chat somebody asked, what is the difference between MA Clinical and MA Clinical Plus? The difference is that with your MA Clinical and or your MA Administrative, you have skills, but with the Plus version, you have foundations. And that is where it introduces core concepts and the didactic content that correlates to your skills in your lab. So for instance, if you were teaching vital signs, your MA Clinical will have skills videos that show step-by-step how to perform those skills with checklists. However, they have a foundation module that provides them with information as to what is blood pressure, what is a pulse, etc. I hope that makes sense. So those foundation modules that you get in the Plus product is what covers here your foundational domain.
And Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Plus products with those foundational modules, they really give the why behind the skill so that that skill can be that much more masterful. Is that correct?
Exactly. It's the why behind what you're doing. So another good example would be infection control. You know, infection control is going to show you how to don and doff your PPE, but your foundation module is going to talk to you about the chain of infection and how disease is spread through breaks in that chain of infection, et cetera. We'll talk to you about, contact-based infections and that type of thing.
Right.
Next we have domains of medical terminology. Medical terminology obviously is, that's the language that we're all speaking. And that provides your learners with essential language skills and understanding medical conditions, procedures, treatments, but it also helps them in having that foundational knowledge that they need for accurate billing and coding. Next, we have A&P, which is also obviously based upon body systems, but this is where we go into a little bit deeper of a dive with those body systems, and what's really nice about it is not only do they talk about structure and function of the body systems, they also talk about pathophysiology, frequent diagnostics, and they have case studies that situate this content to the care environment. So next we have customer service, and it aligns with personability. This moves our learners from being task-oriented to person-oriented. And clinical patient care. This is where our MA Skills Builder Clinical Plus aligns, and this is situating the bedside learning to hands-on skills, blending that theoretical knowledge with practical application. Next, we have patient care and coordination, and this is where our principles of health coaching comes into play. It bridges the clinical care and administrative tasks by integrating health coaching techniques and patient care coordination. I really like to think of this domain. This is our bridge between the back office and the front office. And then finally, we have administrative assisting. This prepares your students with those administrative tasks needed for billing and coding, understanding the revenue cycle, and all of those important tasks that are needed for, collaborating patient care. And then finally, now that we've gone through our didactic program of study, now we have our CCMA prep, which many of you are familiar with. The prep is wrote at a review level for your students after they have engaged into a full body of study at initial learning level. Now they're going to independently engage in this CCMA prep, which is going to cover all of the essential content within the test domains, give them feedback, and direct them to focused reviews where their exact challenge areas are. And what's really nice that you guys will like is not only are your students going to get that individualized feedback, but you also get this as a group, and it can really help guide your curriculum in knowing where you might want to further enhance your curriculum. All righty. So the next I want to show you is this same format with the CMAA, the Certified Medical Administrative Assistant domains. So we can just go through these. And this shows you the content that is most important to cover for the administrative assistant and how those products align. Within administrative assistant, you have your foundational knowledge, which includes medical terminology and A&P. And then next you have medical law ethics, administrative logistics, and revenue, scheduling, and all of those things are included in those immersive modules within the MA Skills Builder Administrative Plus product. Then we have our patient encounter. This is where our principles of health coaching comes into play. And then communication and professionalism, which is your personability product. And from there, just as with your CCMA, you have the prep that they individually engage in, get feedback, improve, and are ready for their exam and certification success.
And what's great about the overlap here is that for a really robust MA program to include all of these products and both certifications, that's going to trend to that stacking credentials we were talking about earlier and providing that MA that much more higher ability, right? On the other side of completion. Would you
agree?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It allows for the multi-competent worker, really. So we'll be looking at how you might stack these with some future slides here, but you'll easily be able to see how you can combine both of these certifications very easily in one program. So Laura showed this to you earlier from a horizontal perspective, but I want you to, let's look at this again through another perspective, through that stacking. So you have your core learning, which is the medical terminology and A&P. This is your foundational content, your professional skills with personability, principles of health coaching. Next, we have our clinical and administrative competency-based learning with, again, our skills and our foundations, and then our certification prep for both the CCMA. We also have this for phlebotomy. We have this for EKG, billing and coding. And so you can easily see how these would stack. Next is going to be the same stacking, but through a segmented approach. Now, this is a linear integration, meaning a step-by-step view of these products. And this approach is presented with skills front-loaded to allow your learners ample time to practice, revisit, and remediate skills throughout the entirety of your program. Additionally, with skills, medical terminology, and A&P front-loaded, this ensures that your learners are familiar with signs, symptoms, diagnostics, diagnoses, and clinical procedures that they will need for billing and coding within the administrative task at the end of your program. So in the first segment, we've got our baseline assessment. And this is not meant to be punitive. The baseline assessment is simply to give them insight, what might they potentially already know, and or also what they don't know, and give them insight into what would a certification exam and questions like that even look like. So first we approach it then with our MA Skills Builder Clinical Plus, and you see it's got those 3 foundational modules in the very beginning: healthcare settings, role of the MA, medical law and ethics. Then we have communication, customer service, infection control, personability, med-term, and A&P. Then we go to our segment 2 with the more advanced skills. We've got our patient intake, laboratory procedures, phlebotomy, EKG, emergency procedures, and then we do a mid checkpoint with our CCMA exam preparation. From there, remember I said principles of health coaching is our bridge between the back office and the front office. We're going to do our principles of health coaching and then have them engage in the MA Skills Builder Administrative and then do their CCMA prep. And then, to Laura's point, if you wanted to, after they engage in the administrative skills builder, you could also stack that with the CMAA prep. All righty. So next, we'll look at another linear approach with the administrative skills front-loaded. So this is very similar to the previous pacing, but in this instance, we're starting with administrative. And you can see here, if you wanted to, you could also put them through the CMAA prep. And, if you're doing maybe a wheel curriculum or a wheel program, you could have your learners simply exit the program at this point if they were engaging in CMAA prep. They could then go on and continue with their clinical medical assisting with this pacing. So then we go to our final section with the more advanced skills and our concentrated review and certification and bedside readiness. So that's a linear approach. So my next question is going to be, do you all find your learners struggle to connect concepts learned in one class, like maybe medical terminology, to practical application in another class. You've taught it in one class or something that is adjacent. You get to another class and oh my gosh, they completely forgot it. What happened? Despite having done good, you know, in their separate courses.
I mean, we
It
know
just,
that application of knowledge loss can be statistically a real thing if it isn't applied quickly, right, Kelly?
well,
That there's the
correct.
attrition is
It definitely happened to me in school, and it certainly happened with my learners as well.
I don't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, right? Like things to think about. So we've got about half of the group, and I think we have a clear winner on the poll here. I'm just going to share these results. So I would say that most people would have to agree with you. Now, some don't necessarily see that, so I would love to hear more about them as how they're approaching that. But absolutely, the majority of our attendees are feeling that same burn. Kelly, yeah.
It was a very common struggle, and I have struggled with it my own self. So our next section is going to talk about enhanced learning through concepts-based integration. So what is that? Concepts-based learning is focusing on interlinking ideas across various subjects to enhance understanding. Some of the benefits of that is going to be facilitating deeper understanding and aiding in knowledge then that can be applied to the bedside. So I know many of you very likely don't teach just one section at a time within your programs. You likely have maybe a fundamentals course. It may be called something like Medical Assisting 101. You may have other courses like maybe beginning lab or an advanced lab class. So this method is going to concentrate on concepts-based integration, and it moves classes away from being siloed in separate courses to intentionally connecting dots. So we'll look at our next slide. This is an example. Remember I said that in the very beginning, both of the products have 3 modules that are similar, and these are the only ones that repeat within the skills builder. They are position of MA in healthcare, legal fundamentals and medical ethics, and communication. And the reason why these repeat is no matter if you start with skills front loaded or administrative front loaded, they will need this fundamental content. So this is an example of where we have connected the 3 fundamental modules along with the personability product. So this is an example of how you're connecting content that's at the bedside to content that's in the classroom.
So Kelly, can I
Mhm.
just, I mentioned earlier that we've done the heavy lifting. So this isn't just a resource that you can take a snapshot of here during a webinar, but we actually have some sample resources that have already blocked these out across the medical assistant suite that you can use for pacing and implementation. Isn't that right, Kelly?
Correct. Yes, these products were intentionally designed to be, learners can engage in them independently. There's a lot of flexibility. You can have them consume them individually, or they were also designed whereby they could be consumed together and make sense, so that they all have cohesiveness. Yes. We have integration guides to assist you all with that, as well as some universal pacing guides. So it does take out a lot of the guesswork.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Okay, so the next is an example of, here we have infection control and personal safety. So this is an example of a foundation section that covers customary didactic content, followed by a skills section, a skills lab. And with our skills lab, you'll see that we have listed for you each one of the skills that's covered within that module that have step-by-step skills videos and corresponding checklist. So in this instance, we've taken infection control, and with med term, we have paired it with integumentary, which is going to be our first line of defense against infection. Next, we've paired medical terminology and A&P subjects with their clinical topics to deepen your learners' understanding. So this is an example of moving from a simple to complex method where you might do integumentary, then musculoskeletal and med term. And then when we begin to explore more advanced skills like assisting with minor procedures and surgical tasks, we then might have them engage in that same content. So let's revisit it. It's important. Let's revisit it with a deeper dive with A&P. So then I have another example on the next slide. And I think this will probably resonate with a lot of you. We have vital signs with our clinical lab, and that's going to be paired with the cardiovascular system and respiratory. Then when we revisit it, because this is important, we're going to continue to practice this, provide opportunities to go back, maybe have skills stations, go back and revisit those skills. It's not a one and done. They did it one time and they're competent. No, these are some things that are pretty important that we need to continue to revisit. So now we're going to revisit those same topics through our cardiac and EKG procedures, doing a deeper dive through A&P. So that is an example of how you can do the concepts-based learning, also do simple to complex. And we do have many universal pacing guides where we've taken our products and align them in these ways through pacing examples.
Right. So you don't have to do this. We've already done it, right? You don't need to come through all those resources and find how they match up. All you need to do is ask your NHA representative, let them know how long your program is, which resources you're using. And if you're kind of in the MA suite, we've already done it for you. So that's some of that heavy lifting I was mentioning earlier.
Right. And they're also not prescriptive. So, you can certainly follow these pacings, just exactly as they're laid out. But you have autonomy and flexibility to add and make these things your own. So I want to show another example on the next page of just some of our resources, such as the competency-based assessments. This is an example of a checklist that goes along with our skills demonstration. I'm sure many of you can see that this is from blood pressure. Explain the procedure, get consent, see the tell you something I have seen a lot of instructors do is they will lecture the foundations module because it covers the didactic content. Then when they get to the module over skills, lots of times they'll just simply bring up the skill, have their students refer to this checklist, and as they're watching that demonstration, they use the method of see one, do one, teach one. As they're watching that skill being demonstrated, they check the video off. And then, at certain times, like for instance, here you can see where I said, why is this important under locate and palpate brachial artery? They may stop here, stop the video and have them practice on each other, etc. So they'll actually use the videos as part of their lab lecture. Okay, and then our next section is going to be, again, that principles of health coaching. That's our bridge. This is where our back office meets the front office, and you can see that it's paired then with patient education and support. And then finally, we're going to go into our administrative task, and you can really see it laid out nicely here, the difference between foundations and skills modules. So you've got a foundations module, which is, again, that's your traditional didactic or lecture content, along with your skills content. And within the administrative product, I really love these. They take them through an immersive simulation scenario. So they give them a scenario in which they need to perform these tasks. And again, they have corresponding competency-based checklists that go along with these. So then finally, after they've gone through their study, they engage in the independent study guide. Now, you can see next to this, I've got the facilitator resources. Now, I don't recommend teaching your class all over again. However, this is an example of a pacing that we've done for you all, where we've provided you with, this is really an index to, if you wanted to, as your students are going through their prep and then they engage in their practice assessments and they get their focused review, not only will you get those individual assessments, and you can see exactly where your individual students are struggling, but you'll also see where your group as a whole might be struggling. And so if you do want to do reviews, you can see right beside those sections where you've got your facilitator resources that have the PowerPoints and the quizzes, et cetera, and handouts in your facilitator toolkits. Good.
Kelly, this is so great. I just, I hope everybody here is as engaged. I've just been like soaking up every second. So I know that do you want to kind of do a little summary here for everybody?
Sure. So some of the things that I spoke with you about were the strategic program planning, those 6 steps that you would want to look at. We do have resources to help you every step of that journey. We talked about layered learning pathways, utilizing those structured linear pathways, simple to complex, and or if you want to use the concepts-based pairing and planning, along with some interactive, adaptive tools that are going to help enhance your learner engagement, practice understanding in both clinical and administrative functions, and then finally your certification preparation and support.
Fantastic. So we're coming to the close of today's webinar, but I did want to just reiterate that we have been recording. We will be sending this recording out to everyone who registered for today. It will also be posted on our website. And I think one of our teammates here is going to be posting that survey link in the chat. So if everybody could just keep an eyeball on that chat and look for that survey link. Completing this survey, which is an overview of today's webinar, what you learned, what you needed. If you need help, if you want someone to follow up with you, if you would like additional training, this is where you should submit that request now. And everybody who fills this out will get put into a raffle for a $50 gift card. So please just open it up right now and have that open so that we can sort of wrap up. But I did want to I didn't see a whole lot of questions come in from the Q&A or the chat. So hopefully that means that we were really engaged, but there were a couple. One of them was, we were talking about the different resources between the MA Skills Builder Clinical versus the Clinical Plus. And to be very clear, they are related, right? The modules that are within the MA Skills Builder Clinical or administrative are also in the plus version of the product. So you would never need to purchase both of those. The plus product is by far more robust due to Kelly's purposes. It has those foundational knowledges. It ties it all together. That's really the product that the majority of our clients who purchase it do purchase just due to its nature. So that's obviously the one that we would like you to take a look. Yes, it is being recorded. We have been recording it. Thanks. And I did see something in the chat here about a community to discuss this with. We have thought long and hard about how to do that. It is more complex than you think, but do reach out to your NHA representative. One thing that they can do, they work with other institutions in your area or in a similar territory. They might be able to find those that are having some best practices and see if we can facilitate a communication. But that is something that would need to be a little bit more one-on-one. We don't at this time have a large group place. Kelly, I see you have your hand up. Did you want to add anything here?
Well, I wanted to say, in reference to the plus versus non-plus version, I really like to think of with the plus modules, which are the foundation modules, those are what I would call my get my weekend back modules. Because that is the content that very likely you're having to supplement, that you're having to make of your own and or use additional resources to supplement because it isn't in a skills module. It's content that, to your point that you said earlier, is the reason behind why you're doing what you're doing. So that's why it's of such benefit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Are there any other questions? Hoping to see, I'm not seeing any come in. So as I said, we want to thank you all for your time today. Thank you so much for spending the afternoon with us. We do have another webinar coming up in August. Kelly, do you, the other one you're doing is more about creative lesson planning. Is that right? You want to just talk real quick
Yes,
about
active learning strategies. And it's really through the approach of different learning preferences. So what are different ideas that you could do for active learning activities in the classroom as it relates to auditory practices, visual, and that type of thing. And so I think people will have a lot of fun with that. Group learning, and but where not one person is doing all of the work. So I think people will find it to be
Oh,
engaging.
I'm really excited about that one. That's the kind of stuff that really get me curious. I've just posted the link to our events page in the chat. So for anyone who wants to look, that particular webinar is the one coming up on, let's see if you have that date. Do you know the exact date of that one? Empowering Instruction. That's August 27th. At 11 a.m. Central Time. It's called Empowering Instruction, Unleashing the Key to Learner Success Through Tailored Teaching Approaches. So I'm really excited. It's kind of the sister webinar to this one. So please do join us for that. But in the meantime, again, we want to thank you all for being here. Thank you for your time today. And we hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks so much.
Thank you.